Okay.
So this is quite an interesting Torah portion, I have to say. A lot of different kind of things in this Torah portion. So it starts off with a very interesting topic. The Torah portion is called Ki Saytzay. And Ki Saytzay means when you go out. And it's talking about going out to war. Okay. So it says Ki Saytzay la Milchama, when you go out to war and you see a captive. So it's talking about the laws of going out to war and seeing a captive. And this is talking about if there's a man who's going out to war and it's not an obligatory war, Rashi explains, but it's just a war that is permitted. So a obligatory war would be like against the 7 nations that live in Israel, because that's like an obligation for us to own the land of Israel. And then we have against Amalek, which is actually also in this Torah portion. We'll see if we have time to get to that because we have a couple other things to get to before that. But and of course, if you're fighting in defense against an enemy that attacks the Jewish people, that's also an obligatory war. And so I'm just going to mute everyone so that we could make sure it's quiet. Okay. Go. Okay. So we're not talking about that. We're not talking about going against Amalek, who was, where we say even every day in our prayers that we're supposed to wipe them out. We're supposed to remember how evil they were, because after we left Egypt and everyone was so scared of the Jewish people, they were the first ones to come and attack and say, who cares? And that really, and hopefully at the end, like I said, we'll have a little bit of time to go into that and see some very interesting lessons that we can learn from Amalek. But to stay on topic for right now, where we're talking about this war that we're going to, so we're not discussing those type of wars. We're talking about a war where you're fighting with other nations to expand the borders of Israel. Okay, not the 7 nations, where it's actually Israel, but we want to make it a little bigger, or, any sort of war that you have that doesn't fit into the category that we spoke to before. So if you're at a war like that, and a man sees a captive, and it says he sees Eshes Yefas Tayar, a beautiful woman, it says he can take her for a wife, and she has to grow her nails. I'm just going to pull up here. I'm sorry. I'm just going to pull up the exact words so that I'll have them. But anyways, okay, till I get to that. Okay, so it says, when you go out to war and you see this captive and he wants to take her as a wife, she's a beautiful woman, what does he need to do? It says, Va'asa Siparna, he takes her back off, and you have to understand that in the battlefield, a tactic that was used many times in the war when the Jews were fighting is the non-Jewish nations would send their young girls to the battlefield dressed up in order to distract the men from war, as a tactic that they would be, while they're distracted by these women, it would be easier to kill them and to fight them. So they would actually sacrifice their own daughters spiritually and physically by sending them out to war. Could you imagine? It's pretty hard to imagine, but that's what they did. So there were these beautiful women hanging around on the battlefield. Okay. They're not going to, civilians over there, but there were these women that were used in war. And so if he sees that she's really beautiful and he really wants her, he desires her, then he is, able to take her. And what does she need to do? So she brings her back off the battlefield to his home, his bunker there. And it says she has to grow her nails. And some people say, what? Grow her nails? But it means like without filing them, like grow them wildly. Like now, her nails are manicured, her hair is nice. So what does she need to do to make her look less attractive as a deterrent? Here you see this girl, you're all enthralled, your heart, your emotions talking, oh, take this beautiful woman. And, the man is, away from his family, his wife, etc. And so he sees this beautiful woman and he wants her. So it says, number one, she has to grow her nails. She has to take off her clothes because after they capture, what do? They put the prisoners now, they put them in, clothing. Now they're going to put her in, you have to remove her beautiful clothes and put her in prisoner clothes. So she's not all beautiful anymore, right? Like she was wearing all this, attractive clothing. Now she is just, taking off the clothing that she was using to seduce. And she has to shave her hair. So now she doesn't have a beautiful hair. She doesn't have her beautiful nails. She doesn't have her beautiful clothing. So maybe he's not going to be so interested anymore, and she has to sit there for a month. And it says she cries for her father and she mourns for her house. And this is like a deterrent after, if they say, listen, she comes for a month. If you still want her after the month, fine, you could have her. So let her come. When you say you can't have it at all, people, it's too hard for me, forget it. But if you say like, oh, you could do it on this condition, so like they have something to look forward, they have that, and they're able to control themselves more. So this is what the Torah sets out. There's actually different opinions, and it's very complicated. We won't have time in today's short class to go into all the details. So there are different opinions. In short, one opinion says that he is allowed to have relations with her one time right away, and then she has this month and this process. And during this month and this process, he's hopefully, going to say, you know what, I'm not really interested in her. And then he has to let her go free. He can't sell her because it would not be appropriate for him to make money on her after this, even though captives you're allowed to sell. But the Torah says, no, once you have had your own personal enjoyment from her, that would not be okay. And then they wait, he could send her free, but they wait 2 months. And if she would like to convert now to Judaism, then she can convert and they could get married. That's after the month. So it would be 3 months from the time that he met her. And if she wants to convert, she has to go to mikvah and she has to have a proper conversion. And then, if she doesn't want to convert, then they wait 12 months. And if she's not interested at all of taking on Judaism, then, he can't marry her and she has to be set free. So that's, and another opinion says, no, he has to wait 30 days until he's allowed to have relations with her. And she has the choice to convert also at that time. And of course, if a child is born, according to the Rambam's opinion, which was that, this theory of he's in war, just like when you're in war, if there's no other food, you're allowed to eat non-kosher food. So if you're at war and there's no Jewish women there, he's allowed to take a non-Jewish woman and have relations, once with her and then bring her into the house, not just have relations and dump her, but take her in now, take care of her. And she sits by the door looking, getting this, the opposite of a manicured look, this like disheveled look, everything just grow, no hair and things growing and getting loose. And hopefully like, oh, she doesn't look so pretty anymore. So there's that two opinions. But according to the Rambam, who says that they can have relations once and then wait the month, it's the idea of like, if there's no kosher, you're allowed to eat non-kosher. So at the time of war, just like you're also allowed to go with a non-Jewish woman without a marriage, without a conversion, etc., in such a situation. Now, what Rashi explains to us, what's the logic behind this whole thing, is that the Torah only permits what a person can handle. And so every single thing in the Torah, no matter what it is, even if I stumble with it on a daily basis, and I say, well, it's not really possible for me to be like that. It's not true. If the Torah tells it, because when the Torah thinks that it's not possible, like it says, a man at war is not going to be able to contain himself in such a dire situation. I mean, what goes on in war, you don't want to read about what really goes on in war, even nowadays, the rape and the, abuse and like everything that goes on. So this is at least setting like a way, but it's still shocking, completely shocking. So Rashi explains that it teaches us, it says it's only keneged, parallel to the Yetzer Hara, that the evil inclination would be so strong, and a person would not be able, this man would not be able to withhold, because his desires would be that strong. And so Torah makes it permissible, because anything the Torah says, a person could handle. And this, they feel the person cannot handle. So it's a tremendous, tremendous lesson that whenever we come across something and we think, I don't know, could I really do all the laws of Shabbos? Is that really possible? Yes. If the Torah said it, when they see that it's not possible, when they see that it's hard, they tell you can do it. It's only, it's only to do it. So, now, even though the Torah permits it, he still needs to do tshuva, because it's not really the will of Hashem. It's not the ideal. And as I started to say before, and I interrupted myself, was that according to the Rambam, where, he has relations one time, and then he waits the month, and then if he wants to, he gets married properly. So what if a child is born? So if a child is born from the first relation, right when he met her, then the child is a non-Jew and must convert. And Tamar is such, who was born to, anyways, so if she is born after, if the child, is born after the marriage, then they don't need to convert. And we have that 3 month in between, because there's, according to the Rambam, he's allowed to have relations, and then there's a whole month of, seeing her every day, looking not so good, when he walks by, like obviously she's in her own place, but he's passing by and, saying, you know what, actually, it's okay. Like, she's not as good as it seems, now that he kind of got out of his system. And then they have to wait 2 months after that if she actually wants to. So it's 3 months. So there'll be no confusion if she's pregnant, she has a baby, because there's that 3 month where there was absolutely no relations. They'll know if the child needs to convert or not convert, because you can't confuse 3 months. You can confuse a month. Maybe the baby's born a little earlier, but when it's 3 months, there's no confusion over there. So we still have like a huge question. We gave one answer: how could the Torah permit this against her evil inclination? But we're still like, still seems so shocking. So there's a lot of deeper meanings to it, and we're going to go into that. Because like if the Torah is trying to sway you from it, like, and according to the other opinions where she has to come, and when he knows he's going to have her in a month, he's not allowed to have relations right away, but he has to wait the month, and then like, she doesn't have hair, and she doesn't have nice nails, and she doesn't have nice, and he's like, you know what? I don't like her that much anymore. It's okay. So why not just say it's forbidden? Why are we like, we're trying to push him away, deter him? Just say originally it's not, what's the significance of this whole process? Like, there's got to be a deeper meaning to this whole story, this whole law, I should say, and we know that there are cases in the Torah where, where this actually happened. So, I mean, in Navi, really, in the prophets, and we have such stories. So, so we're going to learn a very interesting Orach Chaim. He actually gives two explanations, and to me, they're both fascinating. So the first one is, he says, you see, a captive woman who's beautiful, and the Torah is emphasizing that she's beautiful. So on a simple level, you could say it's trying to say, like, he really desires her. She's beautiful, like it's hard for him to control himself. But in this deeper meaning, and the Torah actually says, even if she's ugly, he's allowed to do it. In other words, one of the qualifications is not if she's beautiful. So it's not a qualification. So if the Torah is like taking the time to say that she's beautiful, why are we saying that if a non-beautiful one, the Torah, every word is precise. Every word is exact. And so if the Torah chose to put in the extra word beautiful, there's got to be meaning to it. So it could have just said, if you see a woman amongst the prisoners, and it didn't have to say you desire her. It didn't have to say she's beautiful. So what's this extra wording of she's beautiful, you desire her? And so he says, in order to really understand this, we have to answer another question, which we already basically said, which is, how could Hashem altogether permit the Jew to defile himself by sleeping with the Gentile? And we actually know that there's extra laws when Jewish people go out to the camp to make their camp holy. We're supposed to make our camps holy. We're supposed to tighten our, strengthen our holiness. And instead, we see that it's giving this, we're making it more relaxed instead of, tightening our standards. So why in the world is Torah letting, this man indulge, in such a fashion? It seems it's so different than anything else we learn in Torah and in the Jewish way. It doesn't fit in. So, and he says, listen, when you're talking about food, as we mentioned before, when we discussed, when I brought in the Rambam, that makes sense because food is survival. So of course, even if you're not at war and someone needs this food to live, obviously we try really hard to get the kosher version if there is one. But if there's not, and it's a matter of life and death, yeah, you're allowed to eat that food. But that's to survive. This is not survival. This is for him to fulfill his desire. This is not a survival issue. So, this is lust. So, and we even said, this is referring to his, evil urge, his Yetzer Hara. Okay, so let's work harder to fight against our Yetzer Hara. Why are we just allowing it? Why don't we figure out ways to build ourselves stronger and say we could fight the Yetzer Hara? So the Orach Chaim brings in something from the Zohar, and he says that since the time of Adam, since he sinned, there are many souls, there are many neshamas who were originally in these very holy spheres, and they were taken into captive by these negative forces of klipa. No, they call it sitra achra, the other side, meaning not holiness. So the unholy side, or klipa, is like a shell, which means that it hides and it conceals godliness. Like a shell, you can't tell what's inside. The inside could look very different. Like you have, a watermelon, it's green on the outside and it's hard. On the inside, it's red, mushy. And you have an orange, it's the same color. Like you have no idea what's going to be inside. If I show you this cup over here, it could be empty. It could have water. It could have a diamond ring in it. So it could be worth thousands of dollars, or it could be worth not even $1. So this they fell into klipa, into things that hide godliness. It's so hidden, it's so trapped. And so these holy neshamas, after Adam sinned, they were now taken captive. So when it says that this man is going out to war, he says these, and he sees this beautiful woman. This is referring to, he sees beautiful neshamas, holy souls. And it says, who went out to war? The very righteous ones, because the people that sinned were scared to go out to war. Because if you sin, then this is a great opportunity for Hashem to punish you. So if you were not scared, like if you had no sin and you were really a righteous person, you weren't nervous that now is, that you would, Hashem would take you because you didn't deserve punishment. So a lot of, the commentaries explain that who's going out to the war? The very, very righteous people, not people who have these indulgences. This is referring, they look, and these are souls who are going to convert. It says that the people that convert, they really have a holy soul in them, and that's why they're attracted to Judaism, because they have like a spark of godliness in them that just is like a magnet, because it's like that soul is like seeking the Judaism. And many outstanding Jews have come from such conversions. We have Ruth, who Mashiach comes from. We have Shmaya and Avtalion, very famous. We have Unclus. Unclus, he writes a translation in the Chumash. It's like in almost every Chumash. So we have like really tremendous people, but they were trapped. And they need to find their way back to Judaism. And so he says, there's certain souls, and when these Jewish men are out, they notice, they're like, oh, there's a beautiful soul. They see the soul, and they're like, they want to bring these people to convert. So they're like, oh, come, we're going to get married. Come marry me. You'll convert, you'll become Jewish. So they sense that they have a Jewish soul, and they're able to, feel that. So that's one explanation that he gives. There's actually three explanations that we're going to do, but that was the first one. And the second answer, which is really a little different and fascinating, is he even says like he's going to reveal another mystery, the way he describes it, because it's so interesting. And he says there are certain occasions where a very pure neshama is attached to an impure soul. So there's a neshama, and it gets put into another person's body and clings to their neshama. So what does that mean? That means that it could be a non-Jewish person, and a Jewish neshama is going to come in and attach. It actually works both ways. A Jewish person could just have some random soul that's attached to them, and it's kind of like schizophrenic. Schizophrenic meaning they have like another voice in them that's not them. They have another entity. So it's very challenging. And, there have been stories of people that have come to great rabbis and say, I have another voice in me. I don't know what to do. And then they, give them remedies, and they're able to like release. It's called a dibuk, and it attaches. So he says that there are holy neshamas that get trapped and stuck, and they can't come into this world for whatever reason. And so instead, they're just dumped into someone else's body. And so there are these neshamas that are in these non-Jewish people, and they're trapped. And now, if he comes and he has relations with this woman, she has another soul in her, a special holy soul, and he could release it, because when two people have relations, they're two neshamas joined together. They're two souls. It's a unison of the souls. It's not just a unison of the physical bodies. And so now these two souls are coming together, and they're uniting. And he's able to release this trapped neshama that got stuck. And so that's what happened. So there's two scenarios. Either if he has relations once, then he just releases the soul, and the soul's able to go free now. And that's why it says, oh, he doesn't desire anymore, and he sets her free, and she could go. Because he did his mission. He released that soul that was stuck, and that's it. And sometimes she converts, meaning the soul was not released, but the soul wants to convert to Judaism, and she wants to become Jewish. So if the soul through the first relation is just released, he has no job anymore. That's why it says he doesn't desire anymore. He did his mission. He saw a beautiful neshama. He released that neshama, and now they're good to go. And if the neshama wasn't released, he still desires her more, and he realized that she needs to convert, and that's how the neshama is going to be freed from this like imprisonment. And we have an example of this that he brings about Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion. And it says before this neshama came into the body of Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion, many, many, many years before that, this holy neshama got trapped, and it was attached to Shechem. Shechem is the son of Hamor, and this was the man that raped Dinah, Jacob's daughter. And this neshama, which later came into Reb Chananya ben Tradion, was attached and trapped and could not get out of this evil Gentile, Shechem. And when Shechem raped Dinah and had relations with Dinah, as we said, then two souls unite. And since this soul was in the body of Shechem, attached to his soul, since this neshama was released. So Dinah, we know that everything has a plan. Obviously, it's a very sad story that she was raped, and we're not taking away from the terrible tragedy that happened over there, but we do see something very spiritual. She had a purpose where she was able to release this neshama. And it's actually hinted to because in Sefer Bereshis, when it talks about it, it says Rechavas Yadayim, when it's talking about the story after Dinah was raped and they were, making the negotiations and everything. Because they said, oh, let them get married. And they said, no, everyone has to have a bris. And then they ended up killing out all the people in Shechem. Anyways, it uses the words Rechavas Yadayim, which is the initials of Rechavas, Reish, Reb, Ches, Chananya, Beis, Ben, Taf, Tradion, to hint that this Reb Chananya ben Tradion's neshama was being released, which is what the Or Chaim explains. He refers back to what he explains in the story over there. So his neshama, this one of the future neshama of Reb Chananya ben Tradion, did not exert a positive influence on the soul of Shechem. So it just departed. Because remember, I said there's two different instances of the way it could work. Like if that soul, through this union, it's able to now be released, either it could just release and leave, like, oh, I'm free, or it could take over and influence the person. So like if it just, so that's what happened over here, that he just left, it was released. And he, Reb Chananya's soul just departed from him. And so this is, this whole mystical understanding to the story of Dinah, when it says V'tidabek nafshe v'Dinah, his soul cleaved to Dinah. This is what happened. So then we have the instance of the ones that convert, like we said, Ruth, or, and they now are able to, this neshama attaches to that of the Jew, and it, comes out, and it wants to be, not leave this body, but turn over the body to be a Jew. So it says also that because this person is going out to fight for a good reason, to help the Jewish people, he is involved in a mitzvah. And when someone is involved in a mitzvah, then they're protected. And so even though he's going into sort of dangerous territory, like coming to a non-Jew, but because he's there for the right reasons, and we explained before, he's a righteous person, then he is able to be protected and make sure that he only releases the soul. And that's why it's explaining over here. There's a lot of interesting, wording, like it says he goes out to war. I could have just said he meets her, but it says he goes out to war. And what is it explaining over here? He's going out to fight for God. He is busy doing a mitzvah. He's fighting God's enemies. And while he's engaged in this, he sees, this woman, and the reason why he chooses to say Eishes Yifas Tayr, this beautiful woman, because Hashem opened the eyes of this soldier who's engaged in the mitzvah to recognize this beautiful soul. No one else could see it. It's trapped. But it's like he's fighting for God. He's connected to God. And so therefore he sees that she's beautiful, even though other people can't. It's like there's stories of great rabbis, and like there's a story, let's say, of the Baal Shem Tov, and there was a water carrier. And everyone thought, oh, he was just like a nudnik, and he was and he comes to the city and he says, who is this? I see radiance. I see a light radiating from his face. And no one else could see it. And then they followed him, and they saw that he was like a hidden righteous person, a hidden tzaddik who was helping people in the middle of the night, and he was feeding the poor. And so, they're on a level where they could see the beauty over here, the spiritual light that emanates from this prisoner. And that's why it says he desires, it uses the word ba, in her. It doesn't say osa, her. It doesn't say here desires her. It desires in her, which is weird language. And it says because he doesn't actually desire her. He's not infatuated with the body of the woman, but something inside of her, meaning her holy neshama. And this is why, even if she's outwardly ugly, he sees inside that she has this neshama, and he's able to see that. And, so that is the idea here, that he is seeing through to her inside, to her neshama, this holy neshama that's attached, to her. And then when it says like, oh, he's going to bring her into the house, what does that mean? What's this, spiritual significance of this? He's going to remove from her the negative character traits, like it says. He's going to, take off her hair, and hair symbolizes also klipa, impurity. And he's going to take away her, her negative character traits, and he's going to, bring her to a more, more holy space. Now, some people say when it says do her nails, it means grow the nails, but there's other opinions that say cut the nails. And so here he's also saying like, cut off that impurity. And then at the end, it says that you have to send her away on her own if you decide not to take her as a wife. Later, and that the wording that it uses, vishalachta lenafsha, you send her for her soul, because it's saying, like, what it's reminding the soldier that the only reason he was given to her is because of her soul inside of her. So you're sending away for her soul. You only took her for her soul. You accomplished your goal. You released her soul. Now she's free. Don't forget, you didn't take her for your lust. You took her just as a soul. And it says, V'sholcha lenafsha, you're sending away just a nefesh. It's confusing, but a Jew has a neshama, and a non-Jew only has a nefesh, like an animal soul, a physical, not a spiritual, not a holy soul. So that's what it's saying. Now you're sending away just the nefesh. That's all that's there. You already took out the neshama. You released the neshama. So her soul, which you originally benefited from, already departed from her, and therefore there's no need for you to have her anymore, and you should send her away. Now, the next explanation, the third explanation, which is very applicable to us, is, okay, this is all very nice, and it's interesting, very interesting, telling us that, you think it's just someone giving into their desires, and we learned that tremendous lesson of there's nothing in the Torah, there's no test that Hashem gives me that I can't handle, because if I can't handle it, he's going to tell me it's permissible. Huge lesson. And we learn that, wow, there's these tzaddikim that are, and it's not just a matter of lust, but they were releasing souls, and wow. He says, but how does it apply to me right now? Well, the first one was very applicable to us. But he says, the Or Chaim, that it also refers to each individual. A lot of times the Or Chaim does that. He takes something and he says, even if you don't have it nowadays, because you need to have a Sanhedrin and a proper king, you need to have a proper Jewish king and a proper court system set up, which we don't have nowadays, so it wouldn't be applicable. But if he says, but this applies to each and every Jew, it's going on within me. The beautiful woman, the captive, is my neshama. My neshama inside of me. Why is it a married woman? It's married to Hashem. It's a beautiful, beautiful neshama, but it's captured. It's captured by my Yetzer Hara, my evil inclination. It's captured by the world around me. My neshama is trapped. And I desire it. I realize, you know what? Why am I just giving it to my evil inclination? Why do I just want to talk negative? Why do I just want to wear this? Why do I just want to be lazy and not daven? Why? So you're like, wait, I really desire my neshama. Like, you wake up and you're like, I have a gorgeous neshama inside of me. So it's trapped. And now I desire it. I want to release it. And so I bring it. Where do I bring it? I bring it to, it says the man has to bring it to his house. What's the house? It says that it has, sorry, when a call comes in, it mutes me for a minute. So it says the neshama left the body because the body was so mundane and so full of impurity that it kicked the neshama out. So it's bring it back to the house, bring the neshama back in. And then what do? You shave the hair, you get rid of the klipa, you clean it up, you get rid of the impurity. We said you make the nails, make is fix. You fix the nails, you fix all the klipa, you work, you're cleaning everything up, and you take off the clothing of impurity. The clothing refers to, clothing expresses yourself. What do we express ourselves through? Action, speech, and thought. So you start cleaning out your thought, and first you get rid of all your evil stuff. I'm watching this garbage, I'm listening to that, get rid of that. Then once I got rid of all the dirt around me, now, all right, let me think in a Torah way, let me talk in a Torah way, let me do in a Torah way. And then it says she sits in the house. What does she sit in the house? We said to cry for her father and her mother for a month. So sitting in the house is sitting like in a house of Torah, which means learning Torah. After you've cleaned up a little bit and you worked on your thought, deed, and speech, now you sit and you study Torah. And then it says she cries. Why does she cry? She cries for her father. That means because she feels bad. She does teshuvah. She repents that she left Hashem. And her mother is symbolic of the Jewish people. Like when people use yarn so good, they're not so with the rest of the Jewish people. They're not in the right circles. And connected to now, it says for a month, because that's a normal Chodesh Elul. It's like hinting to the month of Elul that we're in now, right before Rosh Hashanah, where we do tshuva and we prepare. And then it says he could come to her, he could have relations with her, which is the idea of then you could just become one and unite, your neshama unites with Hashem. And then it says, but what if you don't want her, right? And what if he doesn't want her? Meaning he sins again. We fall back into the trap. So it says she's going to, he's going to sin. But then it says she should become, and if she becomes your wife, if you decide to have her, that is preparing the body for Techiyas HaMesim, which should happen very soon. When Mashiach comes, everyone's going to be resurrected, all our loved ones are going to come back. And it says, but if you do not want her, then it says, V'sholcha l'nafsha, send her and don't sell her. Send her away and don't sell her. So in other words, it says, don't sell her. Don't give her back to all your evil inclinations. If you sin a little, come back again and don't lock her up. Okay, so I think we spoke enough about, we only have a couple of minutes left. Actually, I want to add one more thing that I think is so very beautiful. And that is...
I have a question.
Sure.
Go
ahead.
This Torah portion is Ki Saytzay.
Correct.
Isn't this when Moses instructs Israel regarding inheritance, the return of lost objects, usury, divorce? That's when you come to, they're only allowing you one mate, not polygamy, but monogamy. Oppression of hired workers.
There is so much in this Torah portion. I was going to discuss, like you said, returning lost objects also, but we don't have time to do that. If you want, I could give you one short thing on that we could end the class on. Okay. He's pushing me. So I'll end off with one thing about returning lost objects, and it's true, it talks about all those things. But we, in 45 minutes, there's only so much we could cover. So I'll just tell you an interesting thing that is also, just give me 1 second. So when you're talking about returning lost objects, of course, if there is a lost object, we try to return it. And it says that the way that we go about it is, there's lots and lots and lots of laws on it. Like if it's found in a place that someone would give up, you're not responsible to return it, such as, by the water or at a very public place, but, of course, you should always go beyond and try to, try to do it. And there's also a difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. If it's because it says Avedas Achicha, the lost object of your brother, and a Jew does have to return to a guy. But if, let's say, someone's giving you change and they gave you too much change, if it's a Jew, you have to go back and return it. If it's a non-Jew, you're allowed to just say, I trust you, whatever you're doing, and if they do their own thing, it's not your problem. But what we do, one of the main things is when something's lost, someone comes and you say, give me 2 signs. And then they give a sign. And if the sign matches up, then you Like if someone says, you say, I found a ring. And you say to them, okay, how does the ring look? And if they say silver and you have a gold, so you don't show it to them until they give the signs. But a deeper meaning that the Or Chaim gives on this is that he says that, because he says, the example that he gives is that if you see an ox and a sheep that are, lost, your brother's ox and sheep that are lost, you're supposed to return it. And if your brother's not close, you bring it into your house until your brother comes. And so he says the deeper meaning of this is that the brothers are tzaddikim, and he says that there are other Jews out there that are lost. They don't see Hashem, and they're lost, and you're supposed to bring them back to Hashem. You need to return them back, and that's our job. That the tzaddikim have an obligation to return people that are lost and not following the Torah, and teach them Torah. It says ad dereish achicha, until your brother in singular, which is Hashem, until he seeks it. These people are lost, and what if the person doesn't come? You're supposed to hold on to it until he comes to pick it up. Well, I looked for him, I'm just throwing it out. Can't do that. You gotta return it. So he says, until the brother comes, until Hashem comes, which is where symbolic of Mashiach comes, and Hashem is seeking Bnei Yisrael, and he's only going to come and actually take until Mashiach comes. So our job is to teach another person who doesn't know so much about Judaism. So it's like if you learned and you feel like, I don't know everything, sometimes I'm like, why should I teach? I don't know. There's people who know so much more. But you know what? If you know Aleph and Beis and the other person only knows Aleph, teach them Beis. And if you just know one more little thing, teach them that one more little thing. So that's our job until Mashiach comes, which should be very, very soon, speedily in our days. And hopefully another time we'll have time to discuss all the other interesting topics that you said. And have a wonderful day. If there's any other questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deborah. And Mazel Tov.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, have a wonderful day. Take care.
You